Every night for 3 months, my daughter cried in her sleep. Her pediatrician called it night terrors. Last week, I hid a baby monitor in her room. At midnight, I heard my wife whisper, "If you tell Daddy our secret, I'll make sure he goes away forever." The static crackled at 12:03 a.m., and then I heard my wife's voice coming through the baby monitor speaker, soft and venomous, a tone I'd never heard in 11 years of marriage. "Remember what I told you, Lily. If you tell Daddy our secret, I'll make sure he goes away forever. You don't want Daddy to disappear, do you?" My 5-year-old daughter whimpered something I couldn't make out, and then Meredith's voice again, soothing now, almost tender. "Good girl. Now go back to sleep. And remember, if anyone asks why you're crying, you say you had a bad dream. That's all. Just a bad dream." I sat frozen in my home office, the monitor receiver clutched in my hand so tight my knuckles had gone white. The timestamp on my laptop screen burned into my vision. December 14th. 3 months after Lily's night terrors had begun. 3 months of doctors and specialists and sleep studies. 3 months of my wife holding my hand and crying with me about our daughter's mysterious suffering. All of it a lie. I'd been a good husband. At least I thought I had. My name is Nathan Calloway, and for 11 years I believed I was living the American dream in suburban Minneapolis. I worked as a mechanical engineer for Northland Manufacturing, designing industrial equipment, nothing glamorous but steady work that paid well enough to buy us a 4-bedroom house in Maple Grove with a backyard big enough for Lily's swing set. Meredith and I met at a friend's wedding in 2012. She was a bridesmaid, radiant in lavender, laughing at something the maid of honor said. I spilled champagne on my rental tux trying to work up the courage to talk to her. She thought it was charming. We were married 18 months later. Lily came along in 2019, and for the first 4 years of her life, everything seemed perfect. Meredith had left her job as a pharmaceutical sales representative to be a stay-at-home mom, a decision we'd made together. I trusted her completely. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife, the mother of my child, my partner in everything. The night terrors started in September. Lily would wake up screaming around midnight, sometimes later, thrashing in her bed with her eyes wide open but clearly not seeing anything in the room. The first time it happened, I sprinted down the hallway so fast I slammed my shoulder into the doorframe. Meredith was already there, holding Lily, rocking her gently. "It's okay, baby. It's okay. Mommy's here." Lily calmed down eventually, went back to sleep, and in the morning she didn't remember anything. Dr. Rebecca Thornton, her pediatrician for 3 years, examined her the following week. "Night terrors are actually quite common in children her age," she explained, her voice calm and reassuring. "They're different from nightmares. The child appears awake but isn't conscious, and they rarely remember the episodes. Usually they grow out of it by age 6 or 7. I wouldn't worry too much." I wanted to believe her. I did believe her. For a while. But the terrors kept coming. Every single night for 3 months, Lily would wake up screaming between midnight and 2 a.m. Sometimes I got to her room first, sometimes Meredith did. When I held her, she would cling to me like I was the only solid thing in a world made of shadows, her little fingers digging into my shirt, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "Daddy," she would whisper sometimes, so quietly I almost couldn't hear. "Daddy, I'm scared." And then Meredith would appear in the doorway, and Lily would go rigid in my arms, just for a second, before relaxing again. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself it was the disorientation of waking from a terror. I told myself a lot of things. Looking back, I can see all the red flags I ignored. The way Lily always wanted me to put her to bed instead of Mommy. The way she'd started wetting the bed again after being fully potty trained for 2 years. The way she flinched sometimes when Meredith touched her suddenly. Small things. Easy to explain away. Impossible to ignore once I knew the truth. The suspicion crept in slowly, like water seeping through a crack in a foundation. I started noticing that Lily's terrors seemed to happen more often on nights when I worked late or had to travel for business. I noticed that Meredith was always awake when I got to Lily's room, no matter how fast I ran. One night in late November, I pretended to be asleep when Lily started screaming. I lay there in the dark, listening to Meredith slip out of bed and pad down the hallway. The screaming stopped within minutes, much faster than usual. When Meredith came back to bed, she didn't seem worried or tired or any of the things a mother should be after comforting a terrified child. She just climbed under the covers and went back to sleep like nothing had happened. That was the night I started to wonder if my wife was doing something to cause our daughter's terrors. The thought made me physically ill. I went to the bathroom and dry heaved over the toilet for 10 minutes, but the thought wouldn't go away. I bought the baby monitor on December 7th from a Target in Bloomington, paying cash because I didn't want the purchase showing up on our joint credit card statement. It was a VTech model with video and audio, the kind that connects to your smartphone but also has a portable parent unit with a small screen. I told Meredith I was going to the hardware store for some supplies for a project at work. She barely looked up from her phone. "Okay, honey. Drive safe." I hid the camera in Lily's room the next day while Meredith was at her yoga class, positioning it on the bookshelf behind a row of picture books, angled to capture most of the room, including her bed. The receiver I kept in my home office, which I'd converted from a spare bedroom 2 years ago. Meredith never went in there. She said the hum of my computer equipment gave her headaches. For 6 nights, I watched. The first 5 nights showed nothing unusual. Lily slept peacefully until around midnight, then the terrors would start. She would sit up, eyes open, screaming. Meredith would come in, comfort her, and leave. Normal. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe I was losing my mind. Then came the 6th night, December 14th. I was working late in my office, reviewing some CAD drawings for a project deadline, when the monitor crackled to life at 12:03 a.m. I glanced at the screen and saw Meredith enter Lily's room. Normal. Expected. But Lily wasn't screaming this time. She was just lying in bed, awake, staring at the ceiling. Meredith sat on the edge of the bed and leaned close to Lily's face, and that's when I heard it. "Remember what I told you, Lily? If you tell Daddy our secret, I'll make sure he goes away forever." My heart stopped. Literally stopped for what felt like several seconds before slamming back into motion at triple speed. I grabbed the monitor and held it inches from my face, straining to hear every word. "You don't want Daddy to disappear, do you?" Lily shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Good girl. Now go back to sleep. And remember, if anyone asks why you're crying, you say you had a bad dream. That's all. Just a bad dream." Meredith stroked Lily's hair for a moment, almost lovingly, then stood up and left the room. A minute later, Lily started screaming. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my office with the door locked, playing the recording over and over on the monitor's SD card. My wife was threatening our daughter. My wife was making our daughter cry. My wife was causing the night terrors. The questions spiraled through my mind in an endless loop. What was the secret? What was Meredith hiding? What had she done? What was she doing? I needed more information, but I couldn't let Meredith know I was suspicious. If she found out I'd been monitoring Lily's room, she might destroy evidence or, worse, do something to our daughter to ensure her silence. The thought made my hands shake so badly I could barely hold my coffee mug the next morning. Meredith noticed. "You look terrible," she said, not unkindly. "Did you sleep at all?" "Project deadline," I mumbled. "Had to work late." "You work too hard." She kissed my cheek, and I had to fight the urge to recoil. This woman I had loved for 11 years, shared a bed with, built a life with. This stranger who whispered threats to our child in the dark. I called in sick to work and spent the day researching. Child abuse, manipulation, gaslighting, Munchausen syndrome by proxy. That last one made me pause. The pattern fit. A caregiver who deliberately causes or fabricates illness in someone under their care, usually a child, to gain attention and sympathy. But Lily wasn't physically ill, not that I could see. The night terrors were psychological. Which meant whatever Meredith was doing, whatever secret she was keeping, it was hurting our daughter's mind. I needed professional help, but I had to be careful. If I went to the wrong person, if word got back to Meredith, everything could fall apart. I started by calling my brother, Kevin Calloway, an attorney in St. Paul who specialized in family law. I hadn't talked to him in months, not since Thanksgiving dinner when he'd gotten into an argument with Meredith about politics. Now I wondered if there was more to that argument than I'd realized. "Kevin, I need to talk to you. In person. Today, if possible." "Nathan? What's wrong? You sound like hell." "I can't explain over the phone. Can you meet me somewhere?" He agreed to meet me at a coffee shop in downtown Minneapolis at 3 p.m. I told Meredith I had to go into the office to deal with the project crisis. She believed me, or seemed to. Kevin arrived 10 minutes early, which was unlike him. He must have heard something in my voice. We sat in a corner booth away from other customers, and I told him everything. The night terrors, the baby monitor, the recording. His face went pale as I played the audio on my phone, Meredith's voice clear and damning. "Jesus Christ, Nathan." "I know. Have you talked to Lily? Asked her what the secret is?" "I can't. If Meredith finds out I know, she might—" I couldn't finish the sentence. Okay, we need to be smart about this." Kevin pulled out his phone and started making notes. "First, we need to document everything. Keep that recording safe. Make copies. Cloud storage, external hard drive. Send it to yourself in an email. Everything. Second, we need to get Lily evaluated by a professional, someone outside your normal circle of doctors who Meredith might have influenced. Third, we need to talk to a detective. This could be child abuse, Nathan. Criminal child abuse." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Kevin squeezed my shoulder. "We're going to figure this out. I promise. Lily's going to be okay." I wanted to believe him, but I'd believed a lot of things lately that turned out to be lies. Kevin connected me with Dr. Amanda Sullivan, a child psychologist at the University of Minnesota who specialized in trauma and abuse cases. She'd testified as an expert witness in dozens of custody battles and criminal trials. "She's the best," Kevin said. "If something's wrong with Lily, she'll find it." I couldn't just take Lily to see a psychologist without Meredith knowing, so I had to be creative. I told Meredith that Dr. Thornton had recommended a sleep specialist after I'd expressed concern about the ongoing night terrors. The appointment was at a clinic in Edina on December 18th. "I can take her," Meredith offered immediately. "You have work." "No, I want to go. I've been so busy lately. I feel like I'm missing everything." Meredith studied my face for a moment, and I saw something flicker behind her eyes. Suspicion? Fear? It was gone before I could identify it. Okay, that's sweet. Let me know what the doctor says. The clinic in Adena was real. The sleep specialist appointment was fake. Instead, I drove Lily to Dr. Sullivan's office at the university, a warm, welcoming space filled with toys and art supplies designed to make children feel safe. Dr. Sullivan spent 2 hours with Lily that day. I waited in the reception area, my leg bouncing uncontrollably, my phone clutched in my hand ready to record anything Meredith might text or call about. Nothing came. At the end of the session, Dr. Sullivan invited me into her office alone. Her face was grave. Mr. Calloway, I want to start by saying that Lily is a bright, sweet, remarkably resilient little girl, but I'm concerned about what I observed during our session. What did she tell you? It's not what she told me directly. Children who have been coached to keep secrets rarely reveal them to strangers, especially adults. But there are indicators. Lily displays significant anxiety around the topic of bedtime. She drew several pictures that suggest fear and helplessness, including one of a little girl being watched by a large shadow figure while sleeping. When I asked about her mommy, she became visibly agitated and changed the subject 3 times, and she mentioned several times that Daddy might go away if she says wrong things. My hands were shaking again. What does that mean? What's happening to her? Doctor. Sullivan leaned forward, her expression both compassionate and serious. Mr. Calloway, based on my initial assessment, I believe Lily is experiencing psychological abuse. Someone is deliberately frightening her, possibly at night when she's most vulnerable, and conditioning her to keep silent through threats. The night terrors may actually be trauma responses triggered by whatever is happening to her after she goes to sleep. I can't say definitively who is responsible without more investigation, but it's my wife. I pulled out my phone and played the recording. Dr. Sullivan listened without expression, but I saw her jaw tighten. When it finished, she sat back in her chair and exhaled slowly. That's clear evidence of psychological manipulation and threats against a minor. Mr. Calloway, I'm a mandated reporter. I'm legally obligated to contact Child Protective Services with what you've shown me. My stomach dropped. Will they take Lily away from both of us? Not necessarily, but they will investigate. And given this recording, they may recommend that Lily be temporarily removed from your wife's care while the investigation proceeds. I know this is overwhelming, but your daughter's safety has to come first. I nodded. Of course it did. Lily was everything. The only thing. The CPS investigation began 3 days before Christmas. A caseworker named Diana Reeves showed up at our house unannounced on December 21st. Meredith was at the grocery store. I'd planned it that way, contacting Diana ahead of time to coordinate. Mr. Calloway, I'm Diana Reeves with Hennepin County Child Protective Services. She showed me her credentials, and I invited her in. I've reviewed the recording your attorney submitted and spoken with Dr. Sullivan. I have to say, in 18 years of doing this work, I've rarely seen evidence this clear. Most cases of psychological abuse are nearly impossible to prove. Parents learn how to hide it. What happens now? I need to interview Lily. Then I'll need to speak with your wife separately. Based on what I find, I'll make recommendations to the court about custody and visitation. Meredith doesn't know I recorded her. She doesn't know about any of this. Diana nodded. That's actually helpful. Her reaction when confronted may be revealing. Where is your daughter now? Upstairs playing in her room. Diana interviewed Lily for 45 minutes while I paced the living room like a caged animal. When she came back downstairs, her expression was unreadable. Your daughter is frightened of something, Mr. Calloway. She wouldn't tell me what, but she asked 3 times if Daddy was going to go away. I told her no. I hope that was the truth. Meredith came home 20 minutes later, arms full of grocery bags, humming a Christmas carol. She stopped cold when she saw Diana Reeves sitting on our couch. Who are you? Mrs. Calloway, I'm Diana Reeves with Child Protective Services. I need to ask you some questions about your daughter's welfare. The color drained from Meredith's face. She set the groceries down slowly, her eyes darting to me. Nathan? What is this? I couldn't speak, couldn't look at her. Diana stood up. Mrs. Calloway, we've received reports of concerning behavior toward your daughter. I need to conduct an interview with you, either here or at our offices. You have the right to have an attorney present if you prefer. Reports? From who? What behavior? Meredith's voice was rising, taking on that edge of righteous indignation I'd heard her use on customer service representatives and uncooperative salespeople. This is ridiculous. I'm an excellent mother. Nathan, tell her. Meredith. My voice came out rough, barely above a whisper. I heard you. On the baby monitor. I heard what you said to Lily. The room went silent. I finally looked at my wife, and what I saw in her eyes wasn't guilt or fear or denial. It was fury. Pure, white-hot fury, quickly masked behind a trembling lower lip and welling tears. I don't know what you think you heard, but I would never hurt Lily. She's my baby, my everything. The performance was impressive. If I hadn't heard the recording with my own ears, I might have believed her. Diana Reeves clearly wasn't buying it. Mrs. Calloway, we have audio evidence of you threatening your daughter. We have a psychological evaluation indicating trauma consistent with abuse. I'm going to recommend to the court that Lily be placed in her father's sole custody while this matter is investigated. You'll have supervised visitation rights pending the outcome. You can't do this. Nathan, please. Whatever you heard, you misunderstood. I was playing a game with her. Pretend scary stories. That's all it was. A game? I felt something snap inside me, something that had been holding my rage in check. Our daughter has been having night terrors for 3 months. Meredith, she's been waking up screaming every single night because you've been threatening to make me disappear. She's been wetting the bed. She's terrified of you. And you're calling it a game? You don't understand. Then explain it to me. I was shouting now. Explain what secret you're keeping from me that's so important you had to traumatize our 5-year-old daughter to hide it. Meredith went quiet. That calculating look was back in her eyes, the one I'd glimpsed briefly before. She was trying to figure out how much I knew, how much trouble she was really in. Then she made a decision. I could see it happen, some internal shift, and suddenly, she wasn't the tearful, wrongly accused mother anymore. She was something else entirely. Fine. You want to know the secret? The secret is that Lily isn't your daughter, Nathan. She's Ryan's. The words didn't make sense at first. They bounced around in my skull like pinballs, refusing to land in any meaningful pattern. What? Ryan Whitfield, my ex-boyfriend from college. We reconnected a few years before Lily was born. I got pregnant. You were so happy, so excited to be a father. I couldn't tell you the truth. But Ryan wanted to be part of his daughter's life. He's been coming to see her at night, after you're asleep. Through the back door. Lily knows him as Uncle Ryan. She was starting to ask questions, wanting to tell you about his visits. I had to make sure she stayed quiet. Diana Reeves was writing furiously on her notepad. I was having trouble breathing. Everything I thought I knew about my life was crumbling like wet paper. You've been letting another man into our house at night? While I'm sleeping? He's her father, Nathan. He has a right to see her. I'm her father. I changed her diapers. I taught her to walk. I read her bedtime stories for 5 years. I'm her father. Biologically? Biology doesn't make a father. I was on my feet now, though I didn't remember standing. Diana moved between us, one hand raised. Mr. Calloway, I need you to calm down. Mrs. Calloway, what you're describing is deeply disturbing. You've been allowing an unauthorized individual access to a minor child without the knowledge or consent of her custodial parent. You've been psychologically manipulating that child to maintain secrecy. These are serious allegations that could result in criminal charges. I haven't done anything wrong. Ryan is Lily's biological father. He deserves to know his daughter. That's not your decision to make unilaterally, Diana said firmly. And threatening a child with the loss of her parent to maintain a secret is textbook psychological abuse, regardless of the circumstances. I'm going to recommend emergency custody transfer to Mr. Calloway effective immediately. Mrs. Calloway, I strongly suggest you contact an attorney. Meredith stared at me, and for the first time, I saw something real behind the mask. Not guilt, not regret, resentment. She resented me for finding out. The next 72 hours were a blur of lawyers, court filings, and sleepless nights. Kevin worked around the clock to file emergency custody motions. Dr. Sullivan submitted her evaluation and agreed to testify if necessary. Diana Reeves expedited her report to the family court judge. On December 23rd, Judge Eleanor Hoffman granted me temporary sole custody of Lily, pending a full investigation. Meredith was ordered to leave the family home and granted supervised visitation only at an approved facility. She fought it, of course. Her attorney, a slick-looking man named Graham Foster, argued that I had violated her privacy by recording in the home without consent. Judge Hoffman wasn't impressed. The safety of the child takes precedence over privacy concerns, she said from the bench. The recording clearly demonstrates threats being made against a minor. Until this matter is fully adjudicated, the child will remain with her father. Meredith left the courthouse without looking at me. I watched her go and felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just emptiness. But the case was far from over. The question of Lily's paternity loomed over everything. If Ryan Whitfield was really her biological father, he could petition for parental rights. He could try to take her from me. I couldn't let that happen. Kevin arranged for a DNA test through a certified lab, requiring samples from me, Lily, and Meredith. The results would take 2 weeks. 14 days of not knowing if the little girl I'd raised for 5 years was genetically mine. It was the longest wait of my life. During those 2 weeks, I focused on Lily. I took a leave of absence from work. I made her favorite meals. I let her sleep in my bed because she was terrified of her own room now. We built blanket forts and watched Disney movies and pretended everything was normal. The night terrors stopped almost immediately. Dr. Sullivan said it was a good sign. Lily's trauma responses were tied to her mother's presence and the secret she'd been forced to keep. With that threat removed, her brain could finally relax. But she still had nightmares sometimes. Real nightmares. The kind where she'd wake up and remember what she'd dreamed about. "Daddy," she said one night, crawling into my lap. "Is Mommy mad at me?" "No, sweetheart. Mommy's not mad at you. Why would you think that?" "Because I told the secret. The nice lady asked me questions, and I told her about Uncle Ryan. Mommy said never to tell, but I did. My heart broke clean in half. Lily, listen to me. You didn't do anything wrong. You were very, very brave. Sometimes adults make mistakes, and sometimes they tell us to keep secrets that shouldn't be secrets. You did the right thing by telling the truth. I'm so proud of you. She buried her face in my chest. I don't want you to go away, Daddy. I'm not going anywhere, I promise. You're stuck with me forever. Good. She fell asleep in my arms, and I held her until morning, watching the sun come up through the living room windows. Whatever the DNA test said, this was my daughter. Nothing could change that. The results came back on January 6th. Kevin called me at 9:17 a.m. Nathan, I have the paternity results. And? I gripped the phone so tight my fingers ached. Lily is your biological daughter. The probability of paternity is 99.97%. She's yours, Nathan. She always was. I had to sit down. But Meredith said, Ryan Whitfield. Meredith lied. Again. She's been lying about everything. Ryan Whitfield may have been her lover, but he's not Lily's father. You are. My guess is she told you that story to deflect, to make you doubt yourself, to gain some kind of leverage. It's classic manipulative behavior. I started laughing. It wasn't funny, not really, but I couldn't help it. All that fear, all that uncertainty, based on another lie. Meredith had been lying for so long, about so many things, that she probably couldn't tell the truth if she tried. What happens now? I asked when I finally stopped laughing. Now we go back to court and nail this down permanently. The paternity test proves you're Lily's father. The recording proves Meredith was psychologically abusing her, and I've been doing some digging into Ryan Whitfield. You're going to want to hear what I found. Ryan Whitfield, it turned out, was not the innocent biological father Meredith had portrayed. He was a convicted felon with a history of fraud and domestic violence. He'd served 3 years in prison for embezzlement and had 2 restraining orders filed against him by former girlfriends. He was also married, with 2 children of his own, who he'd been cheating on for years. Kevin had obtained Meredith's phone records and text messages through Discovery, and the picture they painted was damning. She and Ryan had been having an affair for 7 years, starting before Lily was born and continuing throughout our marriage. They'd been making plans to leave together, to start a new life somewhere far away. But they needed money. Our money. My money. Look at this text thread from October, Kevin said, showing me his laptop screen. Ryan, we need to speed this up. I can't wait much longer. Meredith, he won't agree to a divorce. He'll fight for custody, and I'll lose everything. Ryan, then make him look crazy. Document everything. Make it seem like he's the one who's unstable. Meredith, I've been working on Lily. She's so attached to him. I need her to be afraid of him instead of me. I read the messages 3 times before the full horror sank in. She was going to turn Lily against me. That was the plan. That was part of it. She was also documenting every time you raised your voice, every time you came home late, every time you drank more than 1 beer, building a case for the divorce she was planning to file, making you look like an unfit father so she could get full custody and child support. And Lily's night terrors? Deliberate psychological conditioning. She was breaking down Lily's trust in you while making her afraid to say anything. If the plan had worked, Lily would have eventually told a therapist or teacher that Daddy was scary, that she was afraid of Daddy, that she wanted to stay with Mommy, and everyone would have believed her because she would have believed it herself. I felt sick. Genuinely, physically sick. My wife had been waging a psychological war against our daughter, weaponizing her, traumatizing her, all to steal her away from me. And she would have gotten away with it if I hadn't bought that baby monitor, if I hadn't trusted my instincts, if I hadn't recorded her. The final custody hearing was scheduled for February 15th. Kevin had assembled an overwhelming case. The recording, Dr. Sullivan's evaluation, Diana Reeves's CPS report, the DNA test, the text messages between Meredith and Ryan, phone records showing Ryan's visits to our home while I slept, financial records showing money Meredith had been funneling to a joint account she shared with Ryan. Everything pointed to a coordinated long-term scheme to destroy my relationship with my daughter and steal her away. Meredith's attorney tried every trick in the book. He argued the recording was inadmissible. Judge Hoffman disagreed, citing child welfare exceptions. He argued that Meredith's behavior, while misguided, came from a place of love for her biological daughter's real father. The DNA test destroyed that defense. He argued that I was an unfit father with anger issues. Dr. Sullivan testified that she'd evaluated me as well and found no evidence of instability or aggression, only appropriate protective responses to discovering my child was being abused. In the end, it wasn't even close. Judge Hoffman granted me full legal and physical custody of Lily. Meredith was stripped of all parental rights pending criminal charges. Yes, criminal charges. The Hennepin County District Attorney, a no-nonsense prosecutor named Lorraine Bishop, had taken an interest in the case. She charged Meredith with child psychological abuse, criminal conspiracy, and endangering the welfare of a minor. Ryan Whitfield was charged as a co-conspirator. They were arrested on the same day, February 18th, at different locations. I watched Meredith's arrest on the evening news. She walked out of the apartment she'd been renting in handcuffs, her face a mask of disbelief. I think she never really believed there would be consequences. She'd gotten away with lying for so long to so many people that she thought she was untouchable. The news anchor's voice droned over the footage. A Maple Grove woman was arrested today in connection with a child abuse scheme involving her estranged husband and extramarital partner. I turned off the TV. Lily was at my parents' house for the night. I sat alone in the living room of the home I'd shared with Meredith for 8 years, the home where she'd plotted against me, the home where she'd traumatized our daughter. I thought about all the dinners we'd eaten together at the kitchen table, all the times she'd said she loved me, all the small, everyday moments that I'd thought were real but were just performances in a play I didn't know I was in. I started packing her things the next morning. Every photo, every piece of clothing, every reminder that she'd ever existed. I boxed it all up and put it in the garage. Eventually, I'd donate it or throw it away. But not yet. First, I needed to rebuild. First, I needed to help Lily heal. Meredith pleaded guilty to avoid a trial. Her attorney negotiated a deal with Lorraine Bishop, 5 years in prison, to be followed by 10 years of probation with no contact with Lily until she turned 18. Ryan Whitfield got 4 years for his role in the conspiracy. He was already facing additional charges in another state for fraud. Neither of them showed any remorse at sentencing. Meredith cried, but I'd learned to recognize her tears for what they were, manipulation tools, nothing more. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she looked directly at me. I never meant to hurt Lily. I just wanted her to have her real father in her life. Nathan will never understand what it's like to love someone the way I loved Ryan. I stood up and walked out of the courtroom. I didn't need to hear any more lies. 3 years have passed since that hearing. Lily is 8 now, a bright, curious, remarkably resilient little girl, just like Dr. Sullivan said. She sees a therapist every other week, a wonderful woman named Dr. Constance Park, who specializes in childhood trauma. The night terrors never came back. The bedwetting stopped within months of Meredith leaving. Lily talks about those times sometimes, in the careful, distant way children discuss things they don't fully understand. Mommy was sick, she says. Her brain told her to do bad things. But it wasn't my fault. That's what Dr. Park taught her to say, and I think she believes it. I hope she does. I remarried last year. Her name is Jacqueline, Jackie for short, a nurse I met at Lily's school fundraiser. She's kind and honest and completely, wonderfully boring. No secrets, no hidden agendas. Just a woman who loves me and treats my daughter like her own. Lily calls her Mama Jackie. It makes Jackie cry every time. I got a letter from Meredith last month. It was forwarded through her attorney since she's not allowed to contact me directly. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I opened it. Nathan, it began. I know you'll probably throw this away without reading it. I wouldn't blame you. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. Not for loving Ryan, because I can't help who I love, but for hurting Lily. She was innocent, and I used her. That was wrong. I know that now. I've been going to therapy here, and I'm starting to understand how broken I was, how broken I still am. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I see it now. What I did. What I became. I hope Lily is happy. I hope someday she can think of me without fear. That's all I want now. Meredith. I read it twice. Then I fed it into the shredder. Some people might think that's cold. Some people might say I should forgive her, move on, let go of the anger. But forgiveness isn't owed. It's earned. And Meredith hasn't earned anything from me except the consequences of her choices. She spent years lying to me, sleeping with another man, and psychologically torturing our daughter to cover it up. She planned to steal my child and disappear. She tried to make my daughter afraid of me, her own father, the man who would have done anything to protect her. There's no apology big enough for that. There's no amount of prison therapy that undoes 5 years of manipulation. Lily is happy now. She goes to school and makes friends and laughs at silly jokes. She tells me she loves me every night before bed, and I tell her I love her too, and neither of us wonders if the other person means it. That's what a real family looks like. That's what Meredith tried to destroy. Last week, Lily asked me something that stopped me cold. We were making dinner together, her standing on a step stool to help me stir the pasta sauce, when she looked up at me with those big brown eyes and said, "Daddy, why did Mommy want to make you go away?" I set down the spoon and knelt so I was at her eye level. I'd thought about this moment for years, what I would say when she finally asked. Dr. Park had helped me prepare. Mommy was confused, I said carefully. She made some very bad choices because she wasn't thinking clearly. But none of it was your fault. And none of it was my fault either. Sometimes people do things that hurt the people they're supposed to love, and it's not because of anything we did wrong. It's because something was broken inside them. Lily considered this for a moment. Then she nodded, apparently satisfied. Okay. Can we put extra cheese in the sauce? I smiled and handed her the Parmesan. As much as you want, sweetheart. As much as you want. I don't know what the future holds. Lily might want to meet Meredith someday, when she's older, when she can make that choice for herself with full understanding of what happened. If she does, I'll support her. But I won't force it. And I won't pretend that what Meredith did was anything other than what it was: abuse, manipulation, betrayal. The kind of betrayal that leaves scars you can't always see. But scars heal. They toughen you up, make you stronger. Lily has scars, but she also has a father who loves her more than anything in this world. A father who will never let anyone hurt her again. A father who believed his instincts when everything else told him to look away. I bought a baby monitor to figure out why my daughter couldn't sleep at night. I never expected to uncover a conspiracy that would destroy my marriage and send my wife to prison. But that's what happened. And in a strange way, I'm grateful. Because if I hadn't heard that whisper in the dark, if I hadn't caught Meredith threatening our daughter, she might have succeeded. Lily might have grown up hating me, believing I was the monster. Instead, she's safe. She's loved. She's mine. That's all that matters. That's all that ever mattered. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.